Hi, welcome back. The Chinese are coming. Well, not really. But that's a concern that many people have about our national debt. So I want to debunk this myth, and there's others we'll get to, about the Chinese cannot just say, give us back our money. It doesn't work that way. Yes, it's true that the Chinese government or their various investment funds have about $1.3 trillion of U.S. debt that they own. That debt was originally issued with specific terms and conditions and expectations and maturities. So assuming that it's all, say, 10-year notes, then during the time that China or any other investor holds that treasury note or a bond or a bill, any of the three, the investor gets interest. And then at the appointed maturity date, the investor gets their principal back. So this idea, this hysteria, I will suggest it could be called, that the Chinese or any other government can demand their $1.3 trillion back on a whim and thereby have us, quote unquote, over a barrel is nonsense. It doesn't work that way. Now, if there were sufficiently large, armada of Chinese battleships parked off the coast of Washington, D.C., okay, that's different. That's called war, but not on a whim. So get that out of the way, because sometimes in the media's attempt to gain your attention or someone who has an agenda to sell you something, they will use this kind of rhetoric, this kind of inflammatory language, or flat out try to scare the bejesus out of you in order to get you to do something else. And by the way, China's not the only one that owns or holds U.S. debt. Some of our other quote-unquote friends hold a lot of it. Japan is over, they're in the $1 trillion club. I think they own like 1.1 or so trillion. Great Britain, oh my gosh, the redcoats are coming. You know, Great Britain owns a considerable amount as well. In fact, if you look around the globe, a lot of the major countries hold U.S. debt as part of what they would consider a balanced portfolio for their countries. That's just the way it's done. And the reason for all of that, ironically, is because the U.S. debt is still considered one of the safest, most secure forms of governmental debt that you can get because of the likelihood, the strong likelihood that the U.S. government, well, let me rephrase that, U.S. taxpayers will make good on that promise to pay interest and pay the debt back. So it is an unnecessary worry. Don't let anybody tell you that this is an imminent danger, and don't let people scare you. It's silly. And along the same lines, another one that I hear from time to time, the government's going to seize our 401k, take all of our money, and leave an IOU note. Pretty unlikely. Yes, it's true that our financial system in the United States, as is the case around the world, is a function of the regulatory controls and structures afforded to that society by the government in place. So it is possible that we could have legislative action, Congress, House and Senate, and then a president, all of which who agree that it is in the everyone's best interest to have a greater control over retirement accounts. It's possible. That doesn't make it likely, but it's possible. Now, it becomes pretty politically difficult, and I know that people would argue, well, that doesn't mean it's not possible. I didn't say it wasn't possible, but it becomes very difficult to basically nationalize these individual investments. And I think that it's a much, much, much easier path to follow the existing pattern of how our government, the executive and legislative branches, how they get the money to run our government, to handle the affairs of our country. And the way we do that now is by pulling in over $3 trillion in revenue, then spending about $3.5 trillion and borrowing the other $500 billion or $500 billion each year to continue to pay for things. That's a lot easier. It flies much lower under the radar screen than going and taking people's 401k accounts. I mean, it's just very difficult. Now, if that's a concern, there are steps, of course, that people can suggest. If you've got a 401k out there and you want to roll it into an IRA if you're no longer working for the company, probably easier to roll it into that IRA than to take some sort of more drastic step. By having it in an IRA, it's probably a little harder for somebody to get to the money. But remember, the government knows where your money is in the 401k, and if you have an IRA, they know it's there too. So weigh the likelihood of such an event before you take everything that's in an IRA or 401k, cash it in, pay an accelerated high tax bracket on that money, 30 or more % tax bracket, to get the money out, to be able to put it into something else that's not government, quote unquote, supervised. And usually where I hear this kind of language or some of these concerns, if you follow the money, get the money out, pay the tax, getting 70 cents is better than getting nothing. This is some of the noise you'll hear. And then take that money and go and buy gold, right? That's the next thing out of the person's mouth. So I'm a believer, maybe you could call me an optimist on this, but I'm a believer in our overall financial system. Is it perfect? No. Are there concerns that I have? Sure. Are there things that I don't like? Absolutely. Would like to see some things done differently? You betcha. But as far as financial systems go, I don't think it's going anywhere. Now, I'll wrap up with an obligatory comment on gold. You know, again, some of this is inflammatory, and some of these things that are touted as world ending, they're going to happen tomorrow, so buy gold today. That's a lot of what we hear. But don't stop at gold. There's palladium, there's nickel, there's rhodium, there's all sorts of portable wealth that you can get your hands on that's going to somehow keep the big brother from getting the money. You know, and the predictions often that go along with it is that gold is going to skyrocket. It's going to go to $5,000 an ounce. Demand has never been greater. The world has never looked bleaker. Things have never been this bad or on the precipice of being so bad. It's just a matter of time before the US dollar is ignored and not accepted anywhere in the world. All these things you hear and all these prognostications about the value of gold always are about them going up at some point in the future. You know, if you say it enough times, and if the world goes through cycles, including the US, eventually the gold is going to go up. But I got to tell you, it makes me chuckle because most of the time I look in the paper and I look right to where gold is. Most of the time that arrow is pointing down. So I've told many people, if having a little bit of gold helps you sleep at night, you want to buy a few gold coins, have at it. It's cheaper than a prescription drug to help you sleep. But as far as taking everything you have and dumping it into gold to buy into all of this rhetoric, I think it's overkill. Have a little bit of cash on hand just in case the banks don't work for a few days, but don't go all in on any one thing. If you do that, you'll plan stronger.